y'all, it's Leah from Southern Yankee DIY, and today I'm going to show you how to transform your table, chairs, and even fabric seat cushions using Eclectic's Unicorn Spit. Y'all are going to love how it only takes one type of paint to transform all three items. The first step to any good refinishing project is sanding. I recommend starting with a 120 grit sandpaper to take off the thick layers, and then moving on to a 220 grit sandpaper to smooth out and finish your surface. And unless you want muscles like Popeye the Sailor, I 100% recommend getting an electric hand sander. After the table is sanded, go ahead and take a microfiber cloth and wipe down the surface. After my tabletop was clean, I went ahead and gave it a coat of primer. The first version of Eclectic's Unicorn Spit that I'm going to use is called Whitening, and I'm going to use this to paint the base of the table, the side of the table, and also the chairs. Now I'm going to start with my darkest color. This is the Unicorn Spit Rustic Reality. For this, I'm going to dry brush it onto the base of the tabletop. Dry brushing is simply taking your paintbrush, dipping it in the paint, and then wiping off as much as possible onto a rag or a paper towel. This is going to help me give the tabletop that nice weathered wood look. One thing that I really love about this Unicorn Spit paint is that it doesn't have that strong paint chemically smell. It smells like a hint of lavender and doesn't leave your room so overwhelmed with fumes. Once that first layer was dry, I went ahead and moved on to my second paint choice. This one is called Squirrel. I also mixed in just a little bit of whitening into this paint mixture. This is going to help me give a more textured look to my faux wood tabletop. I used the same dry brushing technique as I did with the first layer, but I also went back over this layer with a clean, dry rag to just smooth in all of the surfaces and to give it a much more weathered look. My last layer was a combination of Squirrel, Weather Daydream, and Midnight's Blackness. I mixed all three of these together to create my very last layer of paint. In order to give this tabletop the really weathered look that I wanted it to have, I'm going to go ahead and apply this last layer using a microfiber rag. I'm going to apply a little bit and then wipe it into the tabletop using the dry section. This portion of the project is definitely more art than science. Feel free to add different colors, apply them with different pressures and different tools, and go back and redo layers if you'd like. Whatever makes your heart happy. The only rule of thumb when creating a faux weathered tabletop is to make sure that you're applying all of your paint in one direction so that it looks like a natural piece of wood. For the chairs, the first job was to remove the old seat cushions. I simply unscrewed them from the bottom and then started to remove my fabric. After the cushions were removed, I went ahead and sanded the chairs the same way I did the tabletop, starting with the 120 grit paper, moving on to the 220. Each chair also got a coat of primer that I applied with my spray gun. Once my primer was dry, I went ahead and added a layer of whitening to each of the chairs to match the base of the table. The Unicorn Spit paint dries in a chalky finish, so it's perfect for filling in any scratches or dents. After the chairs were dry, I went ahead and moved on to the seat covers. I did cheat a little bit, y'all, and I used these seat covers that I purchased off of Amazon. Much easier than making my own, but if that's your jam, go ahead and go for it. These ones were pretty cheap and fit my chair nicely. Don't worry, y'all, we're going to make these seat covers our own with a little bit of Unicorn Spit. For my seat cover design, we're going to go ahead and use this level as a straight edge. Then I'm going to take some of this frog tape and set out 2 lines so that I have a nice big space in the middle. That's where I'm going to apply my whitening paint. For 2 of the seat cushions, I'm also going to add 2 smaller stripes using the Weather Daydream color. I used my regular unicorn spit mixed in with a little E600 to create my very own fabric paint. Then I applied my DIY fabric paint with a regular brush and also a sponge. This actually went really well as long as you remember to dab over the edges of the tape because you don't want any bleed through. This was much easier than stenciling though, y'all. Immediately after applying my paint, I went ahead and took up all of the tape. I couldn't believe how clean these lines were. Last but not least, I decided to go ahead and seal the tabletop using Famo wood glaze coat. This is a 2-part epoxy, so you're definitely going to want some protection for your floor underneath. Go ahead and mix equal parts of A and B really thoroughly. Once I had parts A and B combined really well, I went ahead and poured my mixture on top of my tabletop, and then used this metal scraper to smooth it all around the table. This did take a little bit of time because you want to make sure that the surface has an even amount of glaze. And yes, I had multiple helpers and even a little popsicle break. To make sure that the edges were coated well, I used the excess sealer and just scraped it over the edges and let it run off onto my floor protection. I wanted to make sure that the edges got a lot of protection because they get a lot of wear and tear. Then, to make sure everything was even, I just used a foam brush and worked it all the way around the edge of the table. And that's it, y'all. My brand new faux weather tabletop, chairs, and even fabric cushions are complete using one brand of paint, Eclectic's Unicorn Spit. I'm so happy with how these turned out, and I absolutely love them. Thanks for watching Home Talk, and I'll see you next time.